So what's going on, guys? For young ladies that actually watch my show, my show, my uh, my videos. So I wanted to do a quick rundown of something I needed to show you guys that belonged to my testimonies. First, I didn't get around to fixing because every time that I've tried to fix a picture of mine, it just gets worse. So in that area of things, I just didn't do it, and I just haven't had the time to. But I wanted to show you what is actually going on in the picture. So a little bit about this is I have seen war, as in the Horseman War, more than one time in my life. Twice I saw war in two places, which was in hell, and it looked literally like my park that's called Westside Park, in the same town that I live in. Or maybe it's in the next town over, but I can never remember like where it's cut off at. But the park itself is really nice. It's got swing sets, and they've redone it since I was growing up. But they've always had this Native American statue with a Native American and an eagle and a bear, and it's been vandalized a lot. It's really sad. And it was vandalized a couple of years ago, and they just never fixed it. They don't really put the fountain on because kids vandalize the fountain too, and they put water and dye and stuff in it. It's pretty horrible, actually. But in this park, when I was transported to hell, it looked like exactly like the park. And there's a building that my light just flickered as I was talking about hell. Like, you guys saw that, right? And talking about this park and talking about this other place. So anyway, so there's this place that actually houses people with disabilities and stuff. It's like a huge hotel kind of thing. It used to be a college dorm, and then they turned it into more of a hotel for people that have disabilities. And I think I was visiting my friend or something, and basically I crossed the street and I saw all the fire around it, around the park, and it was just like almost like a fence of fire, and it was blue at first, but I didn't feel burned, I didn't feel anything like that. I just walked across. Sorry, I'm kind of just digging into my testimony, and oh man, I still get kind of freaked out. But anyway, so I'm crossing the street, and I go into the park, and it looks like a normal park. But then all of a sudden, it looks like the horizon line. Is that what they call it? Like, it looks like it stretches further. So I felt like I was walking for half an hour, and I finally eventually get to the fountain, which is literally only about 20 feet away from where I was, maybe 30 feet. And I'm looking around, and I see that the whole fountain is just destroyed. It's just in shambles. Like, the midsection's pretty much just fallen, and it's vandalized even more so than it normally is, and it was just bad. Like, I felt so bad. And so I'm looking out past that, and I look back and I see this bear that's part of the statue, and I don't know, I'm focused on the bear for whatever reason. And I'm like, you know what, I need to keep going because I feel like I'm drawn to whatever's out there. So it felt like hours, hours. I was just walking, and I wasn't tired. I was slowly getting tired, but I wasn't like tired. And at one point, I was on this, like, everything turned to sand, and I was on this like dune hill kind of thing of sand, and I realized that I wasn't in the park anymore, but I still kind of was. I don't know how to explain it. And as I'm looking out, I see these people, and they're in a bus. It still chills me, and my heart goes out to these people. I don't know who they are, but I'll never forget it. As long as I live, and probably after, I'll never forget it. So I see these what I thought was a bus, but it's not a bus. It was a train. And as I got closer, I could see it, but it just seemed like I was going down the hill, then up another hill, like a sand dune, and it just carried on, like probably about an hour and a half, something like that. And I get to this point where I can look out, and sorry, and I'm looking and I can see it. My like vision is better than 2020, and it's just like I'm like that's so weird because my eyesight. I had cataracts. I've had a surgery when I was like 40. Like so, 3 years ago I had surgery, and my eyes have always been bad. And but I can see this train clearly, and what it is, it's one. The first car is like this way, the second car is this way, and the third car is this way. So it's almost like a Z, and or a two, whatever you want to call it. I'd say more of a Z. And my eyes are fixated on these cars because they're on fire, or what looks to be on fire. So I'm like, I don't know where I'm at right now because I didn't really think about it. And I'm just like, I have to save these people. So I go and I'm like running, which I never can do because I've had asthma all my life and I just can't run. But for some reason, it doesn't affect me. You know, I don't think about it because I don't know where I'm at. You know, at that point, I think I have a clue, but I'm like, I really don't know. So I'm running and I get to another dune and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm closer. I feel like I'm like maybe 100 yards closer to them. So I'm 100 yards off. And I keep looking and I can see clearly. I'm looking at the middle car and I remember seeing this blonde haired girl. She couldn't have been more than maybe 16, 17. And she stood out because of her blonde hair. Like it was one of the brightest things on this car. Car itself was dirty. It had smoke issues and so forth and so on. Like it looked damaged. It looked like it exploded kind of thing. But and that was the first person my eyes focused on. And then I realized the car was turned on its side, and she was trying to get out of the window. And she gets out of the window. Oh, disclaimer real quick. This is going to be graphic, so this is probably not going to be made for kids. Just saying. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So as she was trying to push herself up out of the window, and I'm looking at this, and the window looked like an old school bus window for whatever reason. And she's almost out, and the window just like cuts her in half. And it's so quick, and she looks down and she's terrified. You can tell like she's just, you know, and then she like her screams, like I still hear them, like it's insanely haunting. And then my eyes advert to a guy that's like 2 windows down, and he's like trying to get out. The window won't open for him, and then there's just a bunch of fire that engulfs him, and then the window opens for him, and he's trying to push himself out, not knowing that he's dead. Like I've always, like, skeletons don't freak me out. They do somewhat, just because they just, I don't know. It's always been a thing with me. Normally, you know, being an artist and stuff, like, you know, you have to study the you know, the animation of a person and so forth and so on, the fluidity, pretty much, and anatomy. But it really bothers me. Like I can't stand skeletons. Like they just creep me out. And so anyway, I see this, and then he realizes that he's all bone and he has no life in him at all, other than what he sees. And then this fire comes up from the window and just like incinerates him. And then he's back down in the window again. And I looked quickly over to the girl that was like 16, and she had the blonde hair, and I looked again. She was climbing out of the window again. It was like they were reliving everything they had to go through over and over and over. And then I looked to the other car, which was the top of the Z, which would be, you know, if you go with a Z, or if you're looking at the video, it'd be like this. So it'd be at the top car, and it's basically kind of pointing towards me, kind of. It's angled, and there was an old lady on there, and immediately I'm like looking at her, and I'm smaller for whatever reason. I feel like I'm a kid. For like, I don't think about it. I just feel like I'm a kid watching this, and I feel like someone in her family was watching her die over and over and over, like a kid or something. I don't know. I really don't know. But the end of the car, like I could see it like get hit by something, and then it just burst into flames. And this old lady came out, and she was, I don't know if she was smoking or whatever, or maybe there was a something on the back of it that made it explode, which could be more. It's like I try to forget this stuff because it's so unnerving, and people don't understand like how unnerving it is, like at all. Like I know people don't have this stuff, and excuse me, and you know sometimes they don't realize what's actually going on. So my testimonies are, I mean, it's what I've experienced, and I know I was in hell at that point. I mean, probably when I saw the girl get cut in half. Oh. And as soon as I saw this woman just incinerate in this huge explosion, like I could hear it. It was humongous. Like there's boom, but it kept doing it over and over, and she kept going out there, and I think she was just lighting up, and it blew up. And I think that's what killed the other people on the train. Like, you know, it was more like a domino effect. So that blew up, the cars derailed. You know, like the girl was trying to get out. That was my first thought. But then my second feeling, more or less, and my thought about it, is that these people have just trapped themselves in a loop of sin. And they didn't know Jesus. They didn't know the Lord God. And they thought they did, or some thought they did. Because the one guy that, like, was incinerated inside the car, he looked like a pastor. Like he had the collar, or a minister, or whatever, from what I remember. At first I thought he was a businessman, but he literally had like a business kind of attire, and it looked like he had the collar going on for him. And I just stood there, and I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't know what I could do. And I remember it was like I was outside my body, and I was like a camera, and I was looking at myself, and the whole scenery was panning to my left, and like it was going around me, almost kind of like a really huge theatrical movie kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, at this point I know I'm in hell, but I don't. I'm looking around, and I'm like, why is everything bigger? And I realize that I'm just a little kid in there. And then I'm like, that's weird. I don't feel hot at all. I feel kind of cold, kind of chilled. And for some reason I went like this, and I realized that this part of my cheek was about this much. It was gone. Just like the skin was gone. I could feel my bone in my jaw. And then I looked down at my leg, and part of my leg was missing, like the flesh pretty much, and stuff, and I could see the bone in my leg. The femur, I think it's called. And I started to kind of freak out, and I'm just like, okay, but then I was just like, I can't freak out because I know that Jesus has me. That's all I only said it once inside myself. And then all of a sudden I was pulled super close. Like it was like, it almost looked like, if you've ever watched Star Trek, when they go into warp space, it's kind of like that, except it wasn't space, it was just hell that was around me, and it was a tunnel vision kind of thing. And from where I was standing over by the excuse me, by the statue a little bit further. When I look back, and I'm just like, that's impossible because like I walked about 2 hours, you know. So I get pulled in and I'm like nose to nose with this humongous horse, and it's just black. Like at first, all that's all I see, because like I realize that my face is up against this horse's like nose, pretty much, and then it opens his eyes and then they're just pure red, like, and I could feel the hatred, the evil. Just like if there's the best word that I could use for it would be slaughter. That's all I could feel. It's just like slaughtering people, getting slaughtered. And something divided where I was from the horse. Like it pushed me back, almost to be like, here you go. Let me show you what's going to happen to you, kind of thing. But I'm going to keep you safe. And when I looked, I realized that I was still missing part of my cheek and part of my leg. Like, I mean, I could walk, but like part of my my meat to my leg. And I'm looking and I'm like, okay, I'm still, I guess, alive. And off in the distance, I see the horse, and then I see this figure on the horse, and it had like this cloak, and it kind of resembled like this cartoon I used to watch, which was interesting because I mean, like I hadn't seen it forever, and I really don't think about it. But then I snapped back into reality, and I realized who it was, and it was just the biggest dude you could ever think of. At least I think it was a guy. I mean, it looked like a guy. It didn't have breasts, kind of thing going on. So, and it was on the black horse, and the black horse was at least 8 feet tall, maybe even bigger. Like he was just humongous. Like he looked like he was normal size, you know, from afar, but like when you got up to it, it just was like humongous. And then the rider itself was wearing a very tattered cloak, but he was very defined. But all you could see is his hair coming out, and you could see his piercing eyes. They were red. They went from red to yellow to red. Like, but it was so fast you couldn't really tell. It looked like there was an ember fire kind of going in his eyes. And I'm sorry, it is like so hot in here. Bear with me. Oh, I'm so sorry. So I noticed him from afar because whatever had distanced myself from it, and then it pulled me close again. And it didn't say anything. The horse didn't say anything. It was almost like I could hear it like telepathically again, and it was just like making fun of me, like taunting me almost. And I looked up and basically like where I was, because I was like a kid size, probably no more than 3-4 feet tall. I guess probably about 4. And I'm looking up at this humongous horse and this rider, and I come about almost to his foot, and I'm looking, and you know his feet are in the reins, and I'm just like, or in the I forget what they call him, but anyway, he was mounted on the horse, and the horse like itself was a very beautiful horse. Like it looked like a Clydesdale, but it was very mean. Like it was very evil. Like it just had so much anger. And then it kind of just ignored me, you know. And it's just like whatever. And as I was walking on the left side of it, I could see like it would kind of shimmer, and I could see his skull in there, and then it would go like back to normal. Like it was weird. And I'm looking up at the rider, and the rider pulls something out of it. It like just materializes, and it's just a huge sword. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna die. If I'm not dead now, I'm gonna die. And you could hear him just start laughing, like evil laugh, like there is no hope for you kind of laugh. You know, you're my next victim kind of thing. So let me show you. So this picture is pretty messed up. It's tore. I don't know if like the Lord God wanted it to be torn. I've just kind of neglected it when I was cleaning up my place one day, and but It's horrible, really. The artwork is pretty bad because I just sketched it out. But if you can see that, that's what the horse looked like, and then the rider was humongous, and it was in the foreground while you had the train in the background, and then there was like fire at the bottom, like keeping me from getting to the train too. Like it was horrible. I never, like I was crying. Like I remember crying. My soul was crying out just to leave that place. Like it was horrible. And I felt like I was just wandering around, looking at things that didn't go to heaven. The second time I went to hell, well, there were 4 times. So that was the first time. The second time I came back to the same place I was, and I again met up with war. I just, like, I knew immediately why I was back there and so forth. Well, I didn't know why I was back there, but I immediately know who it was and where I was. And again, like I was back, I could feel the inside of my jawbone and so forth. And again, I realized that I was just a kid. And when I was there, I always felt like I had eyes prying on me, but nothing could touch me. Like it was just like, kind of like you're under a glass jar and you're moving it around so nothing can get to you, kind of thing. Or like, I don't know if you ever did that when you're, when you had a bug or something, especially a spider, like you move it around and watch them follow it, kind of thing. I don't know. I did stupid stuff when I was little, but it was like a force shield. Like nothing could get to me, and they knew nothing could get to me, but it didn't stop them from watching. And I remember, and I was in the valley. It was the darkest place I had ever seen. Like there was no light. There was a fake light. I don't know if that, like a street light, and it was just fake. It didn't show any. There was no promise. It didn't stand for promise or anything. It was very dim light, and there were cars piled up everywhere. And I felt like the cars meant sinfulness, again, of like material possessions and stuff like that. But I wasn't really sure. But I remember walking, and I finally, as I'm walking, I hear these rumblings, like in the background, and like over yonder, and so forth and so on. And it was so dark. I remember I started crying because I was like, I don't want to die here. I don't want to be here. And then I remembered, the whole thing about, walking in the shadow, the valley of the shadow. The valley of the shadow, and, and so forth. And I just repeated that in my head, and the whole phrase. And as I was approaching this light with a bunch of cars and just a bunch of wrecked metal, pretty much, and like a little bit of grass here, and the whole ground was just all dried up. I remember I felt like I was being hunted, and all of a sudden, out of the darkness came the most horrifying. I don't even know how I still remember this. It was one of the most horrifying things that I'd ever seen. Like it clawed at me, it grabbed me, it wanted to do things to me, like just everything in the book that you could think of. And then I thought I heard more, which I did, and then the second one came up, and it was like they were talking back and forth, but I couldn't understand them. And then they were just trying to rip at me and just try to kill me, and I was so afraid, and I'm just like, Jesus, please, get me out of this. And I felt like they had backed off, but they were jumping from car to car, and they were still hunting me, kind of, or stalking me, whatever you want to call it. And then they grew in numbers. It wasn't until like after the whole thing happened, and after I got done with that, like I knew what it was. So, and that it actually led back to one of my testimonies of what it is. So, like as quick as they came in like a cloud of smoke, which I've had testimonies about that before, they retreated And I continued down this path, and the path was long and winding, and I was afraid. I'm not afraid to say that. I was super afraid. And I remember I was crying. I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I just want to get back to somewhere better than here. And then, I was like, I was doing the prayer. I was doing the whole, walk in the valley of the shadow. And I gained momentum, strength-wise inside of me. And then I thought about Samson, and I thought about, I'd think about, what is it, Sodom and Gomorrah, when she turned around and she turned to sand and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't want to turn around. I don't want to go back. And something was telling me to go back, but I'm just like, no, I got to press on. And I pressed on, and I felt like I was nowhere near the end of this thing. And I remember I kept walking, and I was like, I'm not giving up. I don't care where I am. I don't care whatever everything's that I'm done and dead. I don't find that true. And it was really hard for me to understand stuff. And one second. Okay. So I kept walking, and then I ran as fast and as hard as I could. And I tripped over pieces of metal. I tripped over the ground, and I could feel like scorpions and bugs crawl on my foot. And I got up, and I just dashed again, and I ran and I ran and I ran until I couldn't do it anymore. I was out of breath, and I felt like I could do a lot more than I normally can here on Earth. But I was just out of breath, and then all of a sudden I was surrounded, and I could see their eyes, and I could feel them, their presence around me, and I knew that I was going to be ripped to shreds. That's all I know. And then I could understand them talking. I could understand what they were saying. And I'm like, I don't need to be here, And I'm just like, I don't need to be here. This is not what I want for me. I don't want this for anybody else. I don't want, I couldn't fathom this place at all. Like, it wasn't made for us. It was made for the fallen, and that's what I was shown. It was made for people, not people, but the angels, and that disobeyed the originals, that disobeyed the Lord God. That's what the place was for. It's for them and Satan, and that was it. But because people disobeyed God and disobeyed, and cursed and swore, and stuff like that. Like, these people were in there too, but they were all chained. Like, they had nowhere to go, and they were being brutalized all the time. And then Satan, I remember seeing this huge minotaur kind of looking thing in the distance. It was humongous, like, just freaking huge. And I'm like, you know what, if this is Satan, then I'm going to confront him and tell him how much I love God. And as soon as I thought that, I was right in front of him. And I'm like, I was kind of like to the side of the throne that he was on. And it was Baphomet. That's what it looked like. Like, it had the breasts of a woman, and the guy genitalia, and woman genitalia, and it had that, oh man, I'll never forget that face. Like, it was so twisted, and from being like, I just knew that's why it was like that. Like, that's what it chose, because the original face of what I felt was Satan couldn't be shown because of how twisted it was, and so forth and so on. So it chose to look like what it did. And I remember he transformed literally into like this really sharp looking dude. And he had this mustache, and he didn't have like weird feet or anything that I could tell. But he was just, you know, like it was nothing. He's like, oh, you know, look who we have here, kind of thing. And he starts circling me, and when I'm watching him circle me, I see all the other eyes and these humongous demonic beings, just demons all around us. So we're like like if I was the pupil of an eye, that's what I'd look like. And he was like the outside, and he was walking around me. And he's like, "What should I do with you?" You know. And he kept going. He's like, "You know, should I torture you? Should I do this to you? Should I just keep you as a pet? Could I, you know, should I let them rip into you for all your sins that you've done, and so forth and so on?" And this I was just, and I went up, like I started to move, and I couldn't really move, and I was like, and I couldn't move, and I started to say, like, you know, I started to say I felt sorry for him, but I couldn't. Like it made, like he made me not talk. So I was like, okay, since I can't talk, he's like, well, you can't say that. You're not supposed to feel sorry for me. But I was like, well, I love Jesus, and like all the things around us just like raw, like, you know, just out of horror. And I'm just like, okay, so, you know, we're getting somewhere. And he gets up in my face. He's like, never use that name around me. Never. So I was like, well, you know, if I'm going to die, anyway, I'm still going to use it. So I was just like, well, you do know Jesus saved us, right? Again, he just gets mad. And like, I remember getting hit at some point. I don't remember how or like what, but I flew back miles, and then all of a sudden I was back in the same place I was talking to him, and I was like, you can do whatever you want, you can't take my faith away. I will tell people about you. I will show, you know, what I can about you and about this place. And he just laughed. He's like, you know, and then he opens his shirt up, and his breasts pop out. And then the next thing I know, he looks like my ex, which, no offense against her, and I'm trying to make light because I can't talk about this hardcore all the time. But she was a very beautiful young lady when I knew her and when I was with her. So he was trying to tempt me, and I'm just like, no. Because like, when I saw that, my eyes went down to the feet, and then I could see the hooves, and I'm like, no, I'm not touching you. You know, Jesus is more to me than physical, you know, powerlessness. I think that's the word. And it was just, you know, it went on and felt like an eternity almost, like just banter back and forth. And I'm like, you know, I believe my faith, you know, you can't take my faith away. He get madder, I get hit, you know. And sometimes it was more of a mental thing because I could hear him, and he would snort and stuff, and I could feel it on my skin, and it was like the nastiest stuff. It was just like he was snorting out sinfulness. And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm like, I believe in Jesus Christ. I know the testimonies I have. Nothing can take that away from me. And like, I remember I had a necklace on like this, and it had broke like when I was trying to walk, and I still had it. And if I remember correctly, I grabbed it out of my pocket, and I had my hand in my pocket, and I was rolling it up on my hand, and then I was just like, this is what means the most to me, you know. And then immediately I heard no, you know, and I wasn't there anymore. I remember him trying to like reach out and try to like claw at me or grab me, and then I was back in my bed. Like I wasn't sleeping, I was just back in my bed. Like, I don't know how I got there. So those I've tried to tell people about. I've tried to talk to people about that, and people don't want to hear it because they don't want to know. They're like, well, let me just enjoy life. And it's hard. It's always been hard for me for people to enjoy life when the truth is right there in front of you. And it's super hard. I don't know what to tell people because when I think about it, I start to cry. Like I almost started crying a few minutes ago, and I'm thankfully I've held it back. And I'm sorry. I want to. Okay, that's weird. Okay, sorry. Um, so those were the two times that I was told that there were examples that I had to do to show people and tell people. And that drawing that I showed you, that was one. That's a highlight of that. I actually thought about drawing the road that I walked on. The shadow of the valley, or the valley of the shadow. I can't think straight right now because I'm thinking about this stuff. But it would be just literally a dark page with a partial street light, and I don't even know where I'd start other than that. It was just so gruesome. So after praying for a little bit, I kind of got back on my feet and started doing my life stuff. Sorry. The next two times I was in hell, they were for me. For the longest time when I grew up, I believed I knew Christ. Like, I was told that I knew Christ because I was always going to church. I was always doing whatever, helping people out, doing what I could. And at the same time, I was homeless. I was living out of my car, but I had the best time doing what I could for for Jesus and whatever I could do, while trying to stay afloat. But in that time, I also man, I don't even. I tried to deal with everything that I could, and that turned into turning my angst, because I didn't have a place to live. It turned into hatred and sinfulness of the flesh, and I hooked up with a couple girls during that time. I also found out that all my friends at the time just lied to me and used me for rides, in my car, and even those people that I helped out, they stole from me. I didn't understand it. It was horrible. But I was a sinner, and I didn't know Jesus that well, as much as I thought I did. And it was hard for me to admit because I didn't have an ego about myself. I just wanted to be in that place, in that place of just comfort. So this leads me to my first time in hell for myself, not because Jesus wanted me to show other people. And sorry about that. So I was sleeping one night and I woke up to something weird. I turned over and I'm looking up at my ceiling, and I see the biggest spider I'd ever seen. Like, it was huge. It took up. It was probably about 4 foot in diameter, 4 foot by the legs when it was kind of spread out, but 4 by 7 maybe. It was a humongous spider, and it was different colors. Like, it was orange and blue, and pinkish and red. It was a very vibrant spider. Like, it just. But I felt it look at me, and it was like right up here, and I know you can't see it, but it was right by my vent, and I freaked out, and it was almost like it literally just said, like, go to sleep, and I fell asleep. So when I came to, I realized I was walking on this path, and I'm like, okay, so I'm walking, whatever, and I'm looking around, and it's totally dark, and then it, like, the not tile, but like the steps. I mean, not steps, but it was more like sections of ground that formed a road, and it lit up. Like, so when I kind of, like, if you've ever watched Billie Jean kind of thing, like from Michael Jackson, that's how it was. And every time I step on something, it would light up, and then behind me it would crumble and fall. And when all of a sudden I could feel like this huge rumble behind me, and then I realized it was something was eating the road behind me. So, like, I was running and running and running, and I see what's really random. It is very, like, dark and purple, like this, the cloud, like there were no clouds or anything. It was just empty space. And I'm running, and I get to I almost fall off the edge, and it stops abruptly, and then it makes a left, and it goes up into this house. But, like, there was a huge portal, like, humongous, like, the best way I could describe it is like a whirlpool, or even a black hole kind of thing, but it had purple in it, and it was like swirling down below, and I almost fell in, and I could, at first I didn't hear anybody fall in or anything like that, but I looked, and the house was right there, so I started going through the house, and it faster and faster, the road behind me and the sidewalk, like, would disappear. So, like, I didn't have much time, so I jumped, and I barely made it to the step, and I remember, like, grabbing onto the house, and I'm, like, hanging off the porch step, and I'm just like, I don't want to fall. My legs are dangling, and I'm just, like, trying to pull myself up, and I'm like, Lord, please give me the strength to get up here, and I get up, and I'm hugging the door, and I slowly turn around to my back's to the door, and I'm looking down, and I see people just fall into this void. Now, I don't hear anything. So don't ask if I hear any crunches or anything like that. I don't know. Like, there was nothing. They just fell, and they looked so terrified. And I don't know where that led to. I don't want to know. But anyway. So I turn myself around again, and I'm trying to get inside the door, inside the house. And I'm like, for whatever reason, I'm trying to pick the lock. I don't even know. But the lock doesn't need picking because there is no lock, and I'm still trying to pick it, which doesn't make sense. Maybe it does, metaphorically speaking, so if you know anything, let me know. Or if Jesus tells you anything, please let me know. But the door opens, and I'm, like, kind of falling inward, and I'm just like, okay, almost lose my balance, almost fall, again. So I grab the door handle, and quickly I just pull myself in, and the door, like, slams, like, shuts and slams. And what's weird about the whole place is, like, there's only one light, and it's a candle. It's a very old school candle. It had the little thing that you put your finger through, and the little, like, the hook. And, you put the candle in, you walk around with it. It literally, like, when I was there, it reminded me of a game called Silent Hill. For whatever reason, I don't know. But I think it's because, like, in that game you use a lighter, which was interesting because there was a lighter right down on the ground. but it didn't work. So I'm like looking around with this, and everything is in black and white, and it looks penciled, like literally like an art, like a picture. Um, I think it's Aha that did that song when he kind of goes into a comic book kind of thing. You know, he slams into the wall and he becomes real or whatever. Like, it was like that, except it was just all black and white, and except for the light that I had, which was in color, which was weird because like wherever I shone the light, that's where the color was. So I'm looking and I realize that I kind of recognize the interior of this place. Right inside the door, there's steps that go up to the second floor, and then the dining room is to my left, immediately to my left, and then there wasn't really a living room per se, but there was a closet, and then you walk down like a little hallway, and there's two doors. One that went to a garage or a bathroom. I think it went to a bathroom, and then the other one went to like a spare bedroom or something, or a closet, and then there's the dining room in there. But it was kind of switched around. So, like when I came inside the house, the dining room was on my left, the stairs were on my right, and then there was another seating area, kind of with the kitchen. So it was more of a kitchen, you know, kind of reversed from where the kitchen and where the dining room table was. But so it was kind of weird, but I felt like I knew the place. Mind you, this is the first time I've ever told anybody this, like that I can remember. And I'm ashamed, but I know that I'm saved, and I've always believed in Jesus and the Lord God. So this stuff, it bothered. While I think about it, it bothers me. But my worry is, you know, I give my worries and cares to Jesus, and He takes them from me. So I think that's the only. I think He's the only thing, and the only reason why I can be able to tell these, because they're so horrendous to me. So, I go upstairs and I'm looking around and I realize that there's this huge chest, and it was in the shape of a football, and it was what I had when I was younger. Like, it was weird. It's just that, you know, you put toys in and stuff. But I was so afraid of going upstairs because I felt like there were like undead up there, you know. And I carefully went up there. The stairs still creaked like they used to. It was horrifying for me to be there. Like, it was just horrifying. And there was a bathroom up at the top of the stairs in my mom's room, and then I was right next to my mom's room. I had my own room, but there was nothing up there other than that. And like, I didn't even have. There were no beds in there either. It just felt really, really bad to be in there, you know. And I ended up pulling out the chest to look inside of it better, and I placed the candle up on the rail, and there was nothing in the chest, like that. Nothing. So I got dissatisfied with that, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go downstairs again, and I started walking around, and when I got downstairs, there was this huge feast, and I'm just like, wow, what is this? Like, you know, I'm kind of hungry, and as I'm looking, I'm just like, it's so beautiful. Like, there's like gems and gemstones and like beautiful rocks and stuff all over the table, you know, like a centerpiece kind of thing. And as I'm leaning over the table, I feel like there was two boys and a girl and a mother and father that should be there. So I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand this. And so I get back into the hallway. In the hallway, well, actually, let me back up. I go through the kitchen and I'm looking at everything, and then drawers just start coming out, and then the utensils in the drawers, which are only knives. There's no forks, no spoons, only sharp knives. They would stand on end in the drawers. So I don't know if I have any. So yeah. So if this was a knife, it was in the drawer, it would stand on end like this, and I could see them, all of them, and there were like 32 to 48. I don't even remember. There were just a ton of them, and they started flying at me. So I was ducking and trying to avoid it. And I get out of the kitchen, and I remember this cluster of them just flying at me, and I dodged to my left, and they hit the wall, and they're stuck in the wall, and it looks like someone's trying to pull them out. They're just moving, trying to get out the wall. And I'm like, that's it, I'm done, And I'm like, for whatever reason, I felt like I couldn't go through the hallway, so I went back through the kitchen. I was praying the whole entire time. And when I turned the corner and saw the whole table there, the like feast was there, but everybody was dead. Like there were skeletons where the kids were, and on the dad at the end of the table, he had a crown, and it was kind of like over here, it kind of like slid down on his head, and there were cobwebs everywhere. It looked something horrible. Like it just, and I didn't realize the symbology of it until something happened in this life. And so I go into the main hallway, and I see the hallway now. It opens up, like it just goes wider, and it's probably a good 8 feet wide. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Why is that doing that? The candle goes out, and I'm just like, crap, So I'm looking for that lighter that's on the floor. And I find it, and it won't light. And I'm praying, I'm like, God, please light this thing. Please light it. And for whatever reason, I took it back over where I got it, and it lit up again. And I was like, oh, that's different. And then I set the lighter up there on that little thing, and like the little pedestal, and or ledge rather, and then I just took the candle and I turned around, and that's when I saw it like basically widen, which was the hallway, and I felt so sick, like I wanted to keel over and like throw up, kind of sick. And then about 8 feet, I want to say 9 feet away, from me, I saw this floating, hovering pillow. It looked like the bottom of a turnip. Actually, that's what it looked like. So I'm just kind of confused. I'm like, excuse me, well, that's different. I don't know what to think about that. And as I start to walk closer, I notice that it's lined in gold, and it's literally hovering above the ground, about 2 feet. And then I look back at it, and it's got two red soft pillows, and they're lined in gold, but they're velvet red. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, where it is, and then where I was, that thing was. So like we switched places, and immediately I turned around and looked, and at what I saw was this. I forgot what she's called, Shiva, or Shiva. It's the goddess of destruction and rebirth, or I think it's just destruction. And it had like, the 6 or 8 arms. I think it had 6. And or was it 8? No, it had 8. It had 8, but it wasn't her per se. So what it was an elephant. It had like the body of a guy, or maybe a woman, I can't remember. But it was an elephant's face, and it was huge, just humongous. And it was doing whatever with its hands, just kind of posing. And then the hands behind it were just like sprawled out. And I only see half of it, like half the face. And all of a sudden I hear these, like, just horrific screams and pleas, like Pleas, like apostrophe S. And I'm just like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden it's right next to me, behind me, and I turn around, and what it is, I see like there's this darkness. Like, so if you're looking at me, the right side of the face is all darkness, and I just see the one eye. It was kind of like my art thing. I'm going to show you here about my other testimony about death. And then on the other side, it looked like I had to like look closer a little bit because it wasn't doing anything. It was just kind of floating in the air on this pillow thing. And I'm just like, I don't like this weird version of sorrow came over me and disgust. Like I was brought into a perverse kind of world. That's the best way I can say it. And as I got closer and I leaned in, as soon as I leaned over, I leaned back as fast as I could because all of a sudden these forms of people came out of the darkness of that face and was trying to reach for me. And immediately I heard like, go, hurry, leave before it's too late. Don't fall for temptation. Don't. And I'm just like, what? Like, I don't understand this. Like, and thinking that I don't sin or anything at that point in my life, which I did. I was blind to that fact. Oh, well, I wasn't really blind to it. I was just ignoring the whole thing of it because I was like, oh, I'm fine. But I really wasn't. And as I stepped back, the other side of the face of the elephant was in light, and it was mad, like super pissed off. And I'm like, what the? Next thing I know, this humongous hand, like just probably about 6 feet high, just materialized and tried to grab me. And I remember like backing away just in time. And I was knocked to the ground because of the force of the hand. And it looked like he just got madder because it couldn't catch me. So I'm like, I wonder, if it's floating, maybe it can't reach me upstairs. So I get upstairs. I'm like, okay, I'm safe. And then I'm in my room, the room that I thought I was in when I was little, with the trunk and everything, football trunk. I turn around and it's there, and I'm just like hurrying down the stairs. And I get back into the hallway, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I look to my left, and all of the skeletons are looking at me. And I hear, don't do what we did. Like, it was insane. And I'm like, what? And I'm just like, I don't understand that. And then the jaws fell off, and they just crumbled, and the spider webs just like kind of went with it. And I didn't see any spiders or anything, thankfully, but I didn't need to. Like, I was super in a place that was messed up anyway. So I'm back in the hallway, and I'm trying to look at the dinner table to see if there's any kind of clues or something, like I'm Scooby-Doo or Shaggy or something, And I'm just like trying to sort things out. I'm like, am I dead again? Am I in hell again? Which I pretty much thought I was at that point. And I'm looking at the table, and the table is just dusty now, and like the crown is on the table. It was a very elongated table, beautiful furniture, carving and everything else, but the carvings were like snakes into the chairs and stuff. Like, it was gross, actually. The touch was gross. But and I'm seeing this, and I'm seeing the food that was there that looked plentiful. It just rotted and just, yeah, I'm not gonna go into that, but it was bad. And I turn around, and the elephant deity is there, and it's still trying to catch me. So I dodge into the kitchen, and I fall, and I'm kind of like, laying on the ground. I'm like, if I don't get up, I'm gonna die. I know I'm gonna die. I have no way out of here. Then I'm like, wait, the door. What didn't I think about? And I didn't think about it because it was blocking the door at the time. So I get up, and I'm like pushing myself up, looking around, and I don't see it. And all of a sudden, this old timer that my mom had, was on the countertop, and it goes off like loud as can be. And I vividly saw this deity, like, oh, I know where he is, and it appeared inside the kitchen with me. So I zoomed out. I zoomed out, of the kitchen, and I walked, well, not walked, I ran into the dining room, and I remember hitting the chair, and I remember hearing this hiss, and turning back and look and seeing that this snake was like coming from the wood itself and unwinding itself. And I'm just like, what else can go wrong, like right now, you know? And I'm just like, I can't think about it. I just want to get out of here. So the door won't budge. It won't open. I'm like, okay, I'm really in hell. At this point, I know where I'm at. And I hear laughing, like evil laughter again. And I'm just like, no, no, no. But the door unlocks, and there's no lock on it, but it unlocks. And I pull it open, and I start to rush out, and I realize that the vortex is still down there, and I see people screaming. I see women and men falling, children falling into this, and I get like, it shoots through the very fiber of my being, and it scares me. It's just like a never-ending death that just keeps going and going and going. And then I realize that they were being impaled on rock, like just over and over. Like, it was so horrible. Like that's what I remember. Like, this is to the best of my ability. I remember this, and please don't hold anything against me if I get anything wrong. It was so scary. And I turned back, and this thing was at the other end of the hall, and it kept trying to grab me, and then it finally got a hold of me, and it pulled me towards it, and it had this evil grin on its face, on its elephant face, and I could see the markings of like the Hinduism and so forth and so on. And it was a very eyesore kind of thing. Like, you didn't want to look at it. It was just too weird. But it drew you in, and I could hear these girls and women say, "Don't give in to lust. Don't do that. You know, try to get away." And then I would hear these guys scream and be like, "It's not worth it. It's not worth it." You know. And then I got physically ill to where I'm just like, I sin almost every day of my life, and it hit me. And I hear this elephant thing chuckle, and I even get more ill, and I start vomiting, and but nothing comes out. It's like kind of like dry vomiting, I guess. And it was just bad, and I pushed myself up off the ground, because I'm on the ground at that point. And then I feel the hand, it grabs me, it sets me back up, and it says, like, you know, like, "I'm not done with you," you know. And it unhooks its grasp from me, and then tries to forcefully grab me, and then push me into the side of its face where all these people are in. And they're screaming their stuff. They're like, "No, please don't take him. Please don't." Like, they were begging this deity not to take me, you know, not to kill me, not to whatever. Like, I heard it. It was so sad and horrendous at the same time. It's just like, what's going on? Like, it was so confusing. And excuse me. And like, I remember seeing the outline of these women and these men. You can make out the literal outline of them, you know, their breasts, and, you know, down to the bottom of their, you know, part of their legs, but they weren't human. They were literally angels that had fallen, and that's what I would hear. These are the ones that I guess, and don't hold me to this, but this is what I gathered from it. These are the angels that they had trapped, that were trapped by the temptation of Satan, you know, and what he promised, and they were stuck there. And that's what I felt. That's what I've always felt. You know, I didn't really think they were actual people, but I felt they were the angels that, like, you know, came after the first batch of originals, kind of, you know, talking in collect terms kind of stuff. But then I was just like, I can't handle this. And I remember forcing my leg up and kicking this elephant thing, deity, And I ran to the door and I flung it open, and I'm looking down and I'm looking back at this thing, and this thing's mad. It's like, you know, I'm just like, I can't deal with this thing. I don't want this in my life anymore. Please save me. And I remember just jumping. And when I jumped, I heard laughter, and then I came back into reality, this reality, whatever you want to call it, the Matrix or whatever. And that was the first time that was a warning for me. That was a personal experience. The second time was just even more. Well, between the two, between the park and the house, I think they both were just horrendously weird. I ended up seeing War again. I went back into hell for whatever reason, and I remember seeing him again, and the horse, and it said that there will be two, and I'm just like, I don't understand that. And then he's like, more to come, and then I'm back here, and then that weekend, that Sunday, it was beautiful out, and I remember going to church, like to the vineyard, right next door, and I'm out, and people are walking behind me, and I hear look up, and I'm looking up, and I see something in the sky, and immediately it looks like a horse, a gray, green, black horse, excuse me, with a bit of yellow in it, excuse me, and there was a skeleton riding it, and I'm like, am I really looking at this right? Like, I'm rubbing my eyes, and I'm like, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. And it's broad daylight, and I know what it is. It's pestilence, and it's probably about 40 feet in the air. Let's say about 40, because it was pretty up there, far up there. But it was literally like leaving a trail of famine and whatever, like just disease, like in its trail. And it was so clear. Like, I saw it. This woman that was behind me, which I have no idea who she is, so please don't ask. But she was behind me, and she's like, "Is there something up there?" And she sees it. She screams and she runs to her car. She's like, "What is that?" "I don't know. That's creepy." And other people are looking up, and they're just like, "Oh, it's whatever." No one really thinks too much, but this woman and I saw it. So, yeah, I'm not even now, even still, I sin on a daily basis, even things I may not even know I do. It could be picking up my controller to play a video game. Maybe that's a sin. I don't know. It's because of the world. It's such a blur. I don't know, other than the main sins. Like adultery and fornication and stuff like that. Like, I know those are sins. So, let me get back to the family thing that was at the dinner table. That actually had presence to something that happened to me with a girl that, like, stalked me. She apparently had multiple personalities, and she met me in a self-help group, which I didn't even hear what she had. I didn't really, I was only focused on me at the time, and I was trying to work on me to get myself better. And I just kind of denied her. I was like, look, I don't want to be friends, no offense, And then she just kept at it, and it was just horrible. And one day, she messages me. She's like, I'm really horny. And I'm like, okay, no offense, but I'm trying to get out of this, I'm not trying to do this stuff anymore. I'm trying to get out of it and be a better person, soulfully better. And then she starts talking about sexual things and so forth and so on. And she's like, I know you had kids, but can we talk about this? And I was like, talk about what? She's like, well, I'm gonna role play it out. And she role plays like a whole family incest thing to me. And then immediately when she does that, I remember that when I was in hell, the family that was sitting at the dinner table, that's what they were. They were an incestuous family. And he thought he was king and could get away with that stuff. That's why he had the fake crown on his head that fell. And it was so, it was like just in seconds, lightning, you know, be like, oh crap, this is what what it is. So there was that. So yeah, I didn't want to forget that part because I know I said I'd go back to it, but it was pretty messed up. And what it was like I didn't really think about it until it happened. Excuse me. And like she needed help, and I tried to talk to her about Jesus. I tried to talk to her about the Lord God, and she'd always come back and be like, oh, you know what, I'm going to church, and she lives like an hour away. And I'm just like, okay, I'll pray for you, and so forth and so on. And she just kept doing what she did. Now, to me, multiple personalities, from what I've seen and what I know, it's one demonic being that that calls itself Legion. So if you've ever watched the Click videos, and you see those little, in the cartoon about the car, right? That's supposedly about the car. I forgot what they call them, like the Misfits or something like that. Mischievous Misfits, but they look like little clay monster kind of things. And that's what Legion is. It multiplies itself, and I must have the name for those things. But that's what it is. It multiplies and takes over, or tries to take over your thought process, and that's what a demonic thing is. That's what diseases are. That's what diseases are. That's what your mental capability states and stuff like that. That's what they put you on pills to suppress it, but it doesn't really work. I've only seen Jesus work through people. That the pills don't work; they suppress it. But that's what they want you to do. So you stay clouded. Sorry, I'm just this whole talking about it is just horrendously messed up for me, and it's super messed up. I just like even thinking about it. Like I feel like I have to take a shower because it's so disgusting to me, and I try so hard not to sin. I mean, it's super hard not to sin anymore. Like it's like for people thinking they like women, girls like girls and guys like guys and all that stuff. Like it's been so more prominent in this world, and even the Bible says it is going to happen when we get closer to the end. And there's just so much of it. I can't even get on a bus without seeing some college girl. And I'm not saying I'm a creeper, so please don't take that wrong. But I get on a city bus, and like these college girls are like wearing almost nothing, and I'm just like, and I'm just like, what the, and then they're like, why are you looking at me? Don't stare at me. I'm like, then why are you dressed like that, kind of thing? And it goes into another subject of mine, but I don't want to get into that right now. But I'm just like, that's sick. And what's even crazier, I've been on a bus where older guys, like from 46 to 60, white, black, Latino, it doesn't matter what color you are. I have caught 2 of these old guys. One was white, one was black, or brown. I don't even say black, like it's just weird. But they were taking pictures. This white guy was taking pictures of the 12-year-old girl and her friends with his phone, and I'm sitting right behind the guy, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm just like, and I told the bus driver, you know what happened? Nothing happened. They followed the guy, and he walks right past the bus station, and they're like, oh, well, he's not going to come back anymore. Oh, he did. I saw him the next day, and they didn't do anything about it. That's how bad the world is. That's how bad our bus system is. It's just horrible. Then the other town, which was like I want to say about 2 months later, there was an older gentleman, a brown older gentleman, and Like he was sitting across from these girls that like the chairs up front, the seats face each other, and I swear, like he was just like staring at them and drooling, and then he pulled out his phone, and he was trying to be nonchalant about like taking pictures, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like I'm just like, bus driver, stop the bus, get this guy off of here. I don't care how old he is, get him off. You know, he's violating these girls, and it's just like horrendous. Like it's so disgusting. Like I literally, if I'm mad, if I get mad, it's literally because I'm disgusted with these people that do this stuff. Like I can't even fathom why you would do something like that to a kid, or even remotely, have them look at you and be like, oh, they're taking pictures of me. What parent puts that in their kid's head that that's a good thing, And the young girl, like she was a brown girl, and she was like, well, it's fine, it's okay, it doesn't bother me. And I'm like, what? And the bus driver asked her, and she's like, yeah, it's fine. And the driver looked at me, I'm like, get him off. Like, and we pulled into the terminal, and they actually did something about this guy. I don't know if he's still around, but like it was horrible. Like her friend didn't like it, and I'm thinking, who tells their kid to like this stuff, But this world, that's what it's come to, and I fear for myself, because at times I've let myself slip, and I backslide, and I'm like right then again apologizing, and I shouldn't have to keep doing it. I should just not do what, the sinfulness. And there's times, in the Bible it says, if it's better to go into heaven without a hand or something than it is to go to hell with all of your appendages, pretty much. Like if that is God, the Lord God's will, and as long as I can get into heaven, take all of my limbs from me, if that's what it entails. I mean, if I have to, like if I'm going to be energy as an angel again, hopefully that happens. Okay. As long as I'm saved, and I know I'm saved by Jesus, and I know like my place that I live in is horrible with like demonic activity. It's horrible. Like our tables in the foyer, they are literally, I almost said swastikas, but they're literally the pentagrams, upside down pentagrams. I can't make this stuff up. Like I can't. I'll even take pictures of this and see if I can't make a slide. It's horrible. And some of my other testimonies I've had that involve like the dark cloud and stuff like that, kind of like how my uncle was. Like I'm seriously, I've seen this stuff. It's tried to kill me. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't, and I there's a long time, and maybe this has to, I've been better about stuff, but I've also asked people to pray for me, which I never had. Like I was just like, okay, you want to pray for me, cool, but I'll pray for you more because I don't need it, and it's that haughty kind of attitude. It's just horrible, and it's unexcusable, really. Sorry, guys. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. No, I just found out my friend got married. Or got married a little bit ago. I didn't even know. But yeah, so like I tried not to sin, and this is crazy. Even I'll probably do my other video tomorrow because I'm super tired. But I'm gonna go into something that is so tremendously far out there that no one will probably believe me. Like no one. And the the only person, well, other than Christ and the Lord God, the only other people that believed me because they were there when it happened was my ex-pastor's brother, Daniel. And there's a woman that was there. But like how it all played out, it was so horrible. And the aftermath was even worse. But oh yeah, so let me show you. So this is my portfolio that I got from my mom a long time ago. So just real quick, it's my cousin. But just to show, like, it didn't really evaporate on the page at all, right? So this is what I was talking about. That's death right here, and this is Jesus. I did this when I was locked up. Like, I was in a hospital locked up. My own family put me in a mental institution for like months. But this is what I was talking about. The half skull, you can see it. So let me show you. See, it rubbed off on the plastic. It's the only one that's done that. And you put it back on there and you can see. Isn't that crazy? Like, it's insane. And that's the only one that's done that in there. And we put protective stuff on there and stuff like that. I may do a quick video later, in an hour or two, or maybe go through and I'll show you. You know, it's just insane. But anyway, there you go. You know what? I should have prayed before I said anything. Man, see, this is what I'm talking about. Well, let me at least close in prayer. Thank you, Lord God, for this time that I have with you and with the people that watch this, and that I can get this out. I'm sorry that it's so late getting it out. I'm so sorry that I've been lazy and just, I guess, lazy. This world has made me more lazy than I thought it would. But thank you for letting me get this chance to get this out to everybody that wants to see it, that wants to hear my story, that wants to hear your story with me. You know, thank you for the people that do watch this and don't watch this, and thank you for everybody around each and every one of us daily. You know, as we pray for their salvation, that it's not too late, that they see you and, you know, they can come back to you, and we keep spreading the word about you. Thank you for everything you do, and, you know, we don't try to take you for granted, but sometimes we do. And that in itself is a sin, but, you know, we know that you died on the cross for us, and your blood that was shed wiped our sins away, and we still give you the 100% or 110% to guide us, to control our lives, so we don't sin. Thank you for making my life better from where I was, because it was horrible, and I was saved by your grace. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that saved me. Thank you for letting me do my testimonies. Thank you for the people that are watching this. And thank you for not letting me cry and just shutting this off or redoing it, because it's so hard for me to talk about this stuff, especially when it scares me. And yeah, here I am, I'm crying. It's really hard for me to talk about this stuff, but I have to. Now, not only for myself, but because he wills it. He will. He told me a long time ago, and I was so afraid, and I shouldn't have been afraid. You know, I know he's with me. I know he's watching over me and watching over us. You know, may the Lord God bless all of you and myself, you know, included. Don't worry, don't fret. Just cast your cares upon Him, and He will make you better. I love you guys.